So I ended up leaving, and it's all black, and I see different colors, but I see all of the faces and voices and thoughts and frequencies of everything in my life. So I had a pre life review before my main life review when I got up there, but I'm seeing everything, everyone talking, faces talking, whispers, downloads and uploads, and like it seemed like galaxies and colors. And I was seeing auras, and I was seeing all lights, and I started going faster and faster and faster and faster.
I'd like to welcome Malcom Nair to the show. Malcom, welcome to Conscious Conversations. It's an honor to have you here.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I have goosebumps. I feel good about this.
Yes, me too. And while I am excited to hear your story personally, I've heard you on many podcasts prior to today. I do have an interest in talking about some of the intense patterns that were a part of your experience before your near-death experience and how you broke through some of those patterns. So why don't we start off with a little bit of your background prior to your NDE and what those intense patterns were?
Okay, so a little bit about my background. I come from insights of drug dealing and drugs and gangster mentality. My mom was with different boyfriends, and I had this one uncle, I called him uncle, that was like my father figure. He was a druggie or a drug dealer, and he had pounds and pounds of marijuana always around me and in front of me, and would go to hotels and do big drug deals and stuff like that. I was like 8 years old, and I remember, I haven't talked about this, so the more podcasts I do, people, if they want to know more, it's up to the interviewer to probe me, right? But and I remember just seeing that lifestyle. I remember seeing pounds, kilos of cocaine, would be driving at hotel parties, drinking, and big like kilos of cocaine in the back seat hidden. And like we had an abundance of cocaine. Like it was nonstop, and we'd drink and have parties and get-togethers, and we'd be drinking and drinking and drinking like 48 hours, 72 hours, because we were on coke too. And like drinking and driving, parties in the car, 5, 6, 7 people driving all around, commuting all around the city, going Vancouver downtown. I grew up in Campbell and Hastings, so I know this sounds like a bit of a boast, but that's not who I am. That's not what we are. That's an experience I had. And I've done all sorts of drugs. I used to be around crackheads and prostitutes, and I used to associate myself and drive them around like escorts and pick them up when they were done. And I was only 14, 15 years old. And I remember also, stealing my mom's car at 12, 13 years old. I've been driving as early as 12, 13 years old, and I would pick up my older cousins and then would swap money so they could fill up gas, and then they'd get in the front seat. And I grew up hanging out with as early as, I was like 8 years old, but even when I was 14, 17, all my elders, all my friends were 40, 50 years old. And so they would lace the weed, the joint with cocaine, and I would do, like some crackheads would be my friends, and they were so sweet to me. And I was in that circle. They always advised me, Malcolm, get out of this circle, get out of this circle. You don't want to be here. I was the only 14-year-old in a home with everyone 26 to 50, 60 years old. And they would be cleaning their pipes that had down. I don't know what's down called again. So there's crack, cocaine, and then down is heroin, and it was mixed in the crack pipe, and they would clean it and then give it all to me, all that powder, all that filtered powder, to just have for the rest of the days. Because I didn't, I wasn't making money, but somehow, some way, when you're a druggie, you could have drugs, an abundance of it. I don't know how, where it comes from, but that's the mission. You're manifest.
I just want to stop you really quick and say before I got sober, I, couldn't really manifest the things, right, that I wanted in my life. But if I walked into a club, it was like, I always say I became like, I dream of Jeannie, and I could just literally like have drugs appear.
Yes.
So very true. When you're in addiction, it's like it just
Attracts.
yeah, because
Yes.
that's what we're focused on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Your thoughts become things, and it came. Drug dealers knew me by name. I was a kid, and I had opportunities galore. Like I had 7 to 15 offers. Drug dealers that knew me, my cousins, friends that finished high school, and they're like, "Yo, Malcolm, come here," and they had wads of cash. I'm like, "This could be you. Come in the front seat. Let's go. You're my bro, right?" And I just never got into drug dealing. My cousins, died from that lifestyle. One of my cousins got stabbed 6, 7 times by 2 drug dealers that were on the same team, that ended up stabbing him in the back of the car, leaving him by an elementary school, and his body was rotting for 7 days after when they found him. And my other cousin, big car accident on the Patello Bridge, and everyone ejected out of the vehicle. Eyes came out of their head. They're bleeding, internal bleeding. My cousin got out, and he ended up internally bleeding and dying at the hospital. So all these memories, but I had friends and drug dealers and cousins and people who knew me by name that just roll down their window and be like, "Yo," and I had it. That was easy, and it's so crazy. And the people I surrounded myself with would steal cars and steal radios, and then swap it with the drug dealer and be like, "We don't got money, but here's a $2,000 thing, and give us $80 worth or whatever." And that was a little bit of who I am. Just to cut it short now, because that it's going into details about how messed up of a kid I was. So that was my lifestyle, hanging out with people that just got out of jail, and attraction, that kind of stuff, and sex and hookers, and as prostitutes, and just such a destructive lifestyle. And that's just that one sector. I'm not even mentioning my upbringing with my mom and my dad. They divorced when I was 1 year old. I had an abusive upbringing. I've always seen police officers. Sorry, I'm like bringing back you're bringing back so much memory, because you want to know this stuff, right? But just a dangerous upbringing, seeing so much, witnessing so much from an early age. So yeah, that's just a bit of my experience.
Thank you for sharing so openly and being vulnerable about that. And I know that we haven't got into your near-death experience yet, so I have a couple of questions leading up to your near-death experience. So in the time that you just described, would you say that you were aware that you were an addict?
I was aware that I was getting addicted. I was already addicted. I'm talking 4 or 5 days in a row, being a 14-year-old child, losing 15 to 30 pounds. And I never ate. So the first meal of my day was a crack, like whatever we used to call it, a hoot or whatever. And you'd vomit, you'd throw up, and then you'd be used to it. And then you just keep smoking the rest of the day. And I remember one night I finally went to sleep after 4 or 5 days of not sleeping. And I was told to go sleep, and I never washed my face. And I remember internal pimples, and like I didn't take care of my skin, and I had bad acne after that experience. But what happened was I ended up quitting cold turkey. So I was sleeping on a futon in the living room for like 24 hours. I think I slept more than 24 hours, and I didn't move. I just kept sleeping. And I woke up and I was just worried about my life, worried about my health, worried about what I was doing to myself. And I ended up inside of me to call, feeling compelled to, we got to listen to these whispers. Like there's going to be some good insights, like feeling compelled. And I listened to that urge, and I called my sister, and I just told her such a raw experience of what I'm doing every day. And she's like, I kind of didn't know that you were doing that, but I knew because your mom would complain and call me that he's always next door. My next door neighbors were drug lords. That was my neighbors. So I was able to just jump over the bushes and just knock on the door and be welcomed. But anyways, I called my sister, and I ended up taking a Greyhound, and she paid for it, and straight to Calgary, Alberta. And so 15 hours, just cold turkey. I was still a smoker. So I was smoking cigarettes, 2 packs a day, but I quit smoking crack and doing cocaine. But I relapsed a few times as the years went on. I don't even remember all the chapters and cycles that I went through, because between that time, as I got older, I also had a child. I had a child at 17 years old. And when all that was going on, I was dealing with the justice system and court, and I was dealing with alcohol and friends, and I was getting into partying, and I was getting into assault charges and drinking and drug. And then so I changed from being that into this other realm of being partying, clubbing, drinking and driving, and people wanting to kill me and stab me. It was unsafe to be around me, but I feel that the message is across. And I don't want to emphasize too much, because we already know how bad life can get. And that's, just how I ended up stopping that cycle. But let me get to a real actualization. So several years later, I think it was when I was 27 years old, when I finally quit everything. And my car accident was when I was 23 years old, but I still kept doing cycles and patterns till I was 27. At 27, I've already relapsed, got back and forth into drugs and cocaine, and not crack, just cocaine and stuff like that. But I was doing like mushrooms and hanging out with girls and all that bad behaviors, and drinking and driving and all that stuff. But so I ended up deciding that I needed to create an oath and a dedication, and listen to the whispers. So within me, I said, I knew that I was destroying my life, and God gave me a second chance to come back, and I was slapping God in the face. But here I am, a miracle manifesting, attracting, healed. I self-healed so many ailments and disease and problems and broken bones and blood clots and brain damage and bleeding in my brain. And here I am. And I was a contradiction. I was looking, frowning upon others, but I was going through my own journey. So who was I to look and condemn other people when I should be condemned? So I just said, kill me one day. And what this means is, don't say like kill me and end it like that. So what I meant was, I remembered my journey to my near life experience, my near death experience. And what I did, the steps, the process was, I had to dedicate myself back to earth. So I had to create an oath, and I had to create a compelling and a dwelling. It was a sacrifice to God, and it was an oath and a dedication to myself. If I can do this, if I can come back. So I recalled that memory, and I said, okay, that's what I did. That's the process. Those were the steps that I needed to take to come back to earth, to relive this life. So what do I need to do right now, guys, or Malcolm? You need to sacrifice, create an oath and a dedication to your higher self, to God. So I said, if I don't quit smoking, the sacrifice is I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to die from smoking. And I meant it. I said, take my life away, because I really create an oath. Like, I need to change my life. I'm here. If I can't change, do something so drastic because I needed rock bottoms in my life at that point. I've been through so many rock bottoms you can't even count, maybe over 17. In one year, I thought I've hit 7 rock bottoms, and then another one, like in a homeless shelter or sleeping in a bank. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I saying? So when I did that, I contracted pneumonia. And because that calling was so deep, that what you ask for truly comes. And so that's what I wanted. And that was hard on me, because I was spitting out so much liquid out of my lungs, and I was slowly killing myself. But the memory went away of what I did. So I had to remember, oh, you asked for this. So I slowly would take a puff, and I would butt it out, and then I would light it again, take 3 more puffs, and I would cough and spit out liquid. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not smoking the whole thing, I promise. And then I'll smoke half and I'll throw it away, like far away. I'm like, I'll throw it in water so I don't pick it up and light it up again. So I just kept tracking. And then I had a whole pack. So after 20 minutes, I would light up another one, and I would remember, and I would take 3 puffs and I'd be like, okay, no, throw it out. And then I kept doing that to the point where I had to flush my cigarettes down the toilet, and I was slowly just dying. And my ex-girlfriend at that time, she helped me put me in a cold water in a tub, and it wasn't enough. I was turning blue. And she ended up lifting me up, taking me in the car, taking me to the hospital. And they told me that you're killing yourself. I was taking puffers and stuff for bronchitis, but they said, you don't have bronchitis, you have pneumonia. And they were upset with me. So when I found out, I just had to stop and start taking the right things. And so they cleared me out. They gave me the right things. They gave me a breathing apparatus so I can help myself breathe, because I lost like 50% of my oxygen. I was dying, right? I realized right there and then that was the sacrifice and the oath that I asked for. And so I had to kill myself again here on earth, almost, so then I don't have to die to realize it again. And then I quit smoking cigarettes. So, but it was a journey from 8 years old to 23 when I had my car accident to 27. So it's been a journey. And when it came to like drugs and hard drugs and stuff like that, it was that realization again, like, what am I doing? Why am I hanging out with this friend or this girl, drinking and driving? And I would black out. I would black out on the highway in front of an intersection, and people were banging on my door, honking, police officers banging. Like, who's this guy? Thinks he could just fall asleep on middle of the highway and think he's a king. Who the heck is this guy? What is this guy? And that's what I was. And so I finally heard the banging, and it was a police officer with their flashlights and everything. And he was pissed, and I opened the door, and he's like, get out of the car. What are you doing? He's like, you're so freaking lucky. What do you think you're doing? You think you're just falling asleep? Why are your keys on the passenger side? And I'm like, holy, thank God. He's like, I can't arrest you. Walk home right now. And he took my car, impounded it, and he made me walk home. And it was the craziest insight. And I walked, and I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, these whispers. and like literally my spirit and God were giving me signs in real time, like, Malcom, you just died, and like we have to help you, guardian angels. Like literally I had so many angels, and I started to realize I have angels that I can call into existence, and I started to use that power to my advantage of like, okay, please help me, because I'm so messed up. Thank you for putting my keys on the passenger side, or thank you for coming back into my body while I was passed out, and I took it out and put it there, but thank you, and thank you for this, and thank you for that, and I promise I won't do it again. And like there were so many times where like I had all these reminders, so it made me improve. It made me realize like we're given these whispers, and I was given these whispers even before, but I didn't listen to them. I would use my ego against them, and I would say, oh, fuck that, we want a cigarette, let's go party. But it would be like, why do you want to party? Because I want to party. But now when those self-sabotaging, negative, egotistic thoughts come into our wiring and firing into our brain, so I teach a lot of wiring and firing, how to reprogram our subconscious mind now in my curriculum. So what happens now is I reframe that network, and I say the opposite, or I change the suggestion, and I say, what would favor me? Like, no, we don't need that. We're going to do better, right? Or I'm going to, make my life better, right? So when the ego, the devil, we have the devil and the angel want to speak to you and tell you like, you're no good, you're a loser. You might as well drink. Who cares? You went 2 years, you're good. Drink. Like I stopped drinking alcohol 3 years now. It's going to be 3 years I stopped drinking alcohol, but I wasn't like this is my fraudulence, my admittance. Just because I'm a coach or a specialist, or I help specialists all around the world, I'm the first to admit that's why they come to me, because they know that I teach this stuff because I've grown through it. I know how to go through it. But I would drink wine, I would have a beer here and there, good quality IPA, but it's not justifiable. And my spirit inside of me needed to elevate, even though I was attracting, manifesting so much in life, podcast, a children's book, self-help book, cars and houses and stuff like that. My fraudulence was still within me. So I took it upon myself that I had to sacrifice something. So I sacrificed, sometimes destroyed, and I destroyed my relationship. And in return, what I did was I said, now I invested in $1,000 juicer, not because of the relationship, but it's a two-way street. Like there's more to destruction than meets the eye. It's not just, a simple sacrifice. Obviously in a relationship, there's a lot of boundaries and coaching and healing, and you go through the ups and downs, right? We had 2 kids together, right? So there's so much growth, so much personal development, but sometimes through growing, you outgrow each other as well. It doesn't have to be a downward fall. It could be like we're moving forward. And as I was moving forward in my life, I said, you know what? Now I'm going to improve my life even more. So I stopped drinking. I juice. I take care of supplements. I do regeneration. I take care of my mind, body, and spirit more. And I'm just so much more advanced. And I need to get so much more advanced than where I was even 2-3 years ago, even from where I am today. So yeah, but to break cycles, we just need to remember there's a process that we can do. There's an actual process that we can do, is by improving ourselves in every shape, way, and form. We got to always challenge ourselves every day And when we challenge ourselves every day, then the blessings come to us and the whispers come to us when we clean our gut, when we make an oath to reading more, forgiving more, forgiving our enemies, sending out love. The more we do, we're building up what God is witnessing and noticing in us. And sometimes what happens is those lessons we have to go through, because we'll say, oh, fuck, I'm doing so much. How come nothing's changing in my life? How come, my family's still like this? My house, that's the test. So you got to watch yourself before the breakthroughs come. It's like when we plant a seed, we don't see the growth. We just wait. We want to wait till it comes out of the ground. But the work that we need to do needs to be consistent, and it could take a decade. Mine took freaking over 20 years. Sorry, I was about to curse. Mine took over 20 years for me to quantify my life experience and call it a quantum jump. Nobody can say quantum jump without teaching you the back end. Nobody sees what we do when behind closed doors. You know what I mean? Right? So they just think, oh, I want to do a quantum jump, but I don't want to invest the money to take that program or that curriculum, or I can't afford to go to Dr. Joe Dispenza or Tony Robbins event. Or they end up going and they don't continue or follow suit, and they expect their life to change. You know what I mean? So it's a consistency. You need to be dedicated and disciplined and structured and catch your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. There's so many things we have to recognize and pattern recognize, So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So much that I can relate to. I have a lot of questions forming, and I'm curious though, if you would share your near-death experience, and then after I'll take some of those questions and we'll kind of put all the pieces together. How does that sound?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So to continue on this path meant I had to go through a sacrifice. So I went through worse things before my car accident. So I wasn't listening. And I wasn't respecting. And I was favoring the ego, the devil, what the frequencies and the radiation and the gut bacteria wanted. They want sugar, they want dis-ease, discomfort, the social media, the propaganda, the construct, everything, society and agendas and the narrative and diagnosis and all of these things, they want to keep you down, and it's winning, and you are favoring it, and you're using the microwave. I haven't touched a microwave in 15 years. So watch what you do, watch what you eat, watch what you think. I wasn't before 23. And so I was leading my life to an inevitable death. That's what we're all doing. We're destroying our lives. If we're not improving ourselves, or if we're adding some good qualities or good habits, but on top of all our bad traits and tendencies and old habits, you're not good enough. And we got to self-realize that we're not good enough and face that fraudulence in the eyes. So I wasn't doing that. I was getting worse by the minute, by the week, by the month, by the year. And what ended up happening was my spirit or source, God, the universe, synchronicities, my angels just realized that it's just giving up. Like he's not learning here. He's not changing. How do we take his life away? And one night I just took it to the next level, where I was drinking and driving and intoxicated 10 times over the blood alcohol limit. I was on grams and grams and grams of mushrooms all by myself. And I was on cocaine. I was on, I was smoking cigarettes. I was drinking so much alcohol. I was smoking so much weed. And everything kicked in. And I thought I had so much self-control my entire life, but this night was different. This night was the day that my life was going to be taken away from me here on earth. And so I ended up acting up and saying, this is not good enough. I'm not getting the girls that I want. I'm not getting the drugs that I want. I'm not getting, I need more. I want more. All my old traits and personalities were coming out. And I was like, this is not good enough. Let's go for more. Let's do more. And I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm going to go. I'm going to leave. And what was I planning? I was going to go and do another boat full of cocaine, another boat full of mushrooms. What I was going to be in a pool of women, and I'm going to have like all the sex that I wanted. What was I thinking? What was I imagining? Like, I thought, did I think that? Probably. And so that was a facade. I was always chasing this dream. I was always chasing this ecstasy. Ecstasy wasn't enough. Pharmaceuticals wasn't enough. Girls weren't enough. Sex wasn't enough. Partying was not enough. So what was enough? Drinking and driving wasn't enough. I was driving over 120 miles an hour. And that wasn't enough. My car wasn't falling over. I was still driving. That wasn't enough. Hitting two parked cars and I sideswiped two vehicles and I black out wasn't enough. And I went harder on the acceleration and I drive up a house, up a front lawn, and I hit a home 100 kilometers an hour. And I ejected and flew out of my vehicle head first. And I guess that was enough. And so at that moment, I blacked out and I became conscious awareness in that moment where I became a noticer and an observer. But there was stillness and silence for a good period of time where it was dead. And I witnessed my body just being there and shriveled up, cramped up between the steering wheel, the hood of the car, and my crushed SUV in the house. And I hear the people in the house gasping for air because they thought a bomb went off. And the son comes upstairs, says, "Mom, what was that?" My bedroom window, the house just got hit. There's what happened? And the mom goes outside, they see my car and they're like, oh my gosh. And I could just hear that. And they're like, what do we do? Look at his body. What do we do? And so they call the cops or the ambulance. And as I'm waiting for that to come and take place and the investigation to go on, my spirit made my body crawl, gave my body the power to crawl out of the car. And I dragged myself over and laid on the passenger side of the vehicle. And when the police officers and the ambulance came, my body was found on the passenger side. And I had over 50%, way more, of blood loss. I had glass inside and in my head, in my forehead. I had in my face, in my body. And I was losing a lot of blood. And I can hear the ambulance trying to revive me. And I can hear pictures being taken. At that point, I was out of my body and I'm witnessing everything, and I'm seeing them putting the tape up and taking pictures and checking the computer system to see how fast I was going. But I was at that time and space, but I was already heading to the hospital. So I was noticing that I was at different times in different spaces all at once, but without physically being there or my spirit physically being there. It was like conscious thought. I was into frequency. I was at a different level of awareness where I could tap into frequency and thought waves. So at that moment, I realized that I can travel and be in my body, out of my body, be a spirit, but also witness things that are going on and thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And so that's a part of what I do and what I have been able to do, and even after my accident. So that at that moment was occurring, and I get to the hospital and I'm following my body into surgery and for my leg, and different specialists are seeing me, wondering what's going on with him. How do we diagnose him? We can't tell the family anything because we don't know anything. He should be dead right now, and we don't know if he's a vegetable. So all this contemplation's going on, and I'm just having fun with my spirit. I'm just going around, traveling the hospital, and going back and forth, checking in on my cousins, eating their sandwiches, and going in, watching everyone talk and cry and associate with each other. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I, a spirit just traveling everywhere? What's the point of this? What's the purpose? And so I realized that I had to be near my body for some of these surgeries and some of these things going on. And then the time came where my mom was coming in and out, and I noticed and realized how dehydrated and thirsty I was. My body, my spirit knew that my body was going into shock. So at that time, I ended up going into my mom's mind and telling her I need water. So as she's telling the nurses my son needs water, she didn't know that I needed water. But how did that thought enter her mind to tell nurses all of a sudden I need water? So these things I can explain now about the is that telekinesis, or is that that's clairvoyance, whatever that is. What is that called?
Telepathy.
Telepathy. So telepathy, these terms and all this personal growth came to me afterwards, by the way. So my abilities and all were there, and I explain what I do, but people always tell me what I do, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm doing this for you. But so thoughts I was doing, and I ended up going into my body and giving my body the power to take off my neck brace. So I know you probably watched my interview where I explained that, and I was a vegetable, right? Like I had paralysis. Over 75% of my nerves were shot. They were damaged. My muscles were shot 75%. And I had numbness on the right hemisphere of my entire body down to my toes, my tongue, my brain, my head, my eyes, my speaking ability, everything. And when I got up, I couldn't move. It was a ton of bricks. So the strength to take that off, my spirit did. The strength to take out my tube, my spirit did. And so my mom screamed and saw that, and she panicked, and she's like, see, my son, he's responding. He needs water. Can I give him water? And so I'm laughing about this now. I say it so matter of fact, But when I sit down and have told my family and cousins and aunts and uncles and my mom, they just sit there stone cold because I'm like, why aren't you telling me anything? They're like, well, that's what happened. What do I tell you? You're telling us what we noticed, what we saw. And even about their mind and their thoughts, I knew what was in their mind before they spoke. So I do that, right? And it's like not a shocker for people who know me, but at that time it was like a people going cold, like they didn't know what to say, like how do you know that, right, kind of stuff. And so um she ended up giving me water. My body felt hydrated. And so then the nurses and the specialists decide that she needs to tell everybody that she can unplug me, that he's responding. Okay. So at that moment, I was responding. That's common sense. And so that she could unplug me. At that moment, though, is when I had my near death experience. Because in that moment is when my spirit left and knew what the purpose was. I gravitationally started leaving and hovering and leaving the hospital room. And I was like, I had no more control. I was like, what's going on? Why am I being pulled? Like you know how just a UFO could take your body and you have no control? It was like I was being taken, and I didn't know what to do in that void, in that emptiness, in that stillness, in that darkness. And I had to realize what surrender really meant. I didn't know. And just because I'm saying surrender and detachment and acceptance and admittance and being in the unknown knowingly, or be comfortable being uncomfortable, or in the expected unexpectedly, these things take practice to do. And I learned them after, and I realized that's what it was. So while I was going, that I had to contemplate, like, do I control this situation, or do I just let go? And so I guess I had no choice, and I let go, because if I didn't let go, I would have suffered in the body, in the vegetable, and I wouldn't have discovered my powers or healed or nothing. And I wouldn't have any experience or awakening or enlightenment. Um, so I ended up leaving, and it's all black, and I see different colors, but I see all of the faces and voices and thoughts and frequencies of everything in my life. So I had a pre-life review before my main life review when I got up there, but I'm seeing everything, everyone talking, faces talking, whispers, downloads and uploads, and like it seemed like galaxies and colors. And I was seeing auras, and I was seeing all lights, and I started going faster and faster and faster and faster. And then it slowed down, and it became a void of emptiness and blackness. And I was nervous, and I was not sure, and I was unsure. And so in that moment, I had to trust and and repent, and just let go. And when I was being tested in that moment of vulnerability, I started being pulled slower to a white light. And it guided me in front of a white light. And I saw this white light, and it wasn't a light, it was just white everywhere. And everything inside was white. And I got welcomed inside, but I can hear whispers. I can hear people talking. I can hear, like, he's here, welcome. And, oh, how was your journey? And how was his journey? Oh my God, like excitement. And I felt home. I felt like I belonged. Like that's where I'm from, where I was born, where I existed. So it felt so familiar. And where I came from felt so unfamiliar, but familiar as well. And I'm like, and I can see my body just there. And I was puffy, swollen up. And if I was this, who was that? And if I'm experiencing this family and the light and everything and this experience and compassion and love, then what is that down there? And that's when I started to contemplate, and then I see all the guardians and angels, and the main angel, or main source, main God, or whatever you want to call it. My experience was that lifted his head up and in a deep, calm, serene voice asked, "What do you want to do? What are you going to do?" And I contemplated, and as I'm looking back at my life, I had an epiphany moment where I reviewed my life in contemplation, and I could not unsee what I left behind. And I said, you know what, inside of me, my spirit, how can I leave that? How can I just be here? And I just contemplate, I'm like, it would be so loving, so nice to just leave, and at the end of a beautiful movie, but the ending is it leaves you wondering, and you sit there after the movie and you decide how it should end or how it should finish. So I went through that decision making, and I'm like, if I go here and I become this angel and I stand there, is that going to be fulfilling? And I'm like, no. Even though it was so fulfilling, so happy, that decision to go back to destruction, to the hell that I knew, I didn't see it like that. I saw it like, if I'm being so much love, compassion, forgiveness, then that's what I can do. I can do this, right? I was like, I can do that. And God was, source was like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure. And the lights went off, and I went back the same way instantly. And I was like, okay, so I'm going, I guess. That's it. I went down the hole, went down the slide. It's over. I jumped off the plane. I can't go back. Like, can that come back to me? How do you call that spirit back into existence? And so I'll explain. But I go down the blackness, and I enter the atmosphere, enter the hospital room, into the room, and back into my body, and there was silence. And I entered the same brain, the same destruction, the same destroyer, the same narcissist, the same abuser, the same addiction, the same addict, the same failure, the same rock bottom, the excuse of a life, the victim. And I wake up, and I get up, and I look at my leg, but I already knew who was in there. My mom and my sister. I said, are you kidding me? Look at my fucking leg. And what the fuck are we going to do about the leg? What are we going to do about this? Are they not going to do surgery? And I was already on top of everything. I was hyper aware. I was already telling people how it is, where to go, and how to do surgery, and what to do, and what I want to do, and how I'm going to heal, and what to tell nurses, what to tell doctors, how to answer my mom and my sister right away. I was already so in tune in their brains. I can hear nurses coming, doctors coming, specialists, what they were thinking in advance. I already knew everything. But I didn't have self-control over my compulsions and my anger and my reactions. But I had control over my thoughts, feelings, and emotions. I can see into things. I can hear thoughts. I can program the machines, like they're doing my blood pressure. I could raise it up and down. And I could do so many things. I could heal. I can heal my lungs in 3 days. I healed my bones in 3 days, less than 6 days. The surgery was done. I walked out of the hospital in 6 days. And so that was the miracle. That was the poster child. But it was such a broken chaotic puzzle piece of a life that I had to go through, because I had to discover who I am. I had to discover and relearn life again. I didn't know who I was. And so this new realization, I didn't know if it was a gift or a curse, because it was so powerful, but I didn't know why I was still smoking. If I'm so powerful, why am I smoking? If I'm so, remember, I kept smoking till 27. I was 23. But if I'm so powerful, I said, okay, I'm going to go to school. I passed. I downloaded all the exams in advance. I was able to sneak into the teacher's writings, and I was able, with my spirit, to find out answers. I was able to download information and colors and mathematics and decimal points and fractions to become the #1 student in college. But I was a grade 6 dropout. Think about that. I barely made it through grade 3. So how do I go to college and get started back at as early as they can? They couldn't start me at grade 3. They had to start me at grade 6. But how do I pass with flying colors all the way to grade 10? Because my life circumstance got the best of me, and I chose to have sex and drink again and leave and not finish grade 10 and 11 and 12 and get my GED. So, and then life got hard again. Yeah.
I have a burning question about the patterns that you described, and just like how you just said that, you kind of dabbled back into that world a little bit. So in your life review, did you see the impact on yourself and others that the addiction had? And was that part of why you wanted to come back?
Yes. And with my son, my older son, and with my family, and how to let go of resentment, anger, rage, how to, like, enemies, like, I attracted and manifested me. I'm speaking for me. I was raped. I was molested. I was homeless. I attracted bad things. I was sleeping around. I was disgusting. I was abusive. And so to see that and know that and still have to go through it and have to relive it and make the decisions, making the mistakes again, was hard, because it's like the compulsion to do it and not do it was happening at the same time, but I was doing it. I was going through it. I had to break through the cycles of driving, drinking and driving, or getting a ticket, speeding tickets. So I had to learn, and these are all teachings I teach, and so many clients, so countless amounts of clients are going through those miracles of breaking cycles of, oh my gosh, this is not happening to me again anymore after 50 years, after 20 years of this, because the teachings, the patterns, the cycles, the karmas, pattern recognition of what I had to go through. So I would get tickets, speeding tickets. I would get my criminal record. I had evictions. I was getting fired from jobs. How did I break these cycles? So I had this awareness, and I teach how people get the awareness. They get the awareness, they get all the insights, the downloads, the revelations, and the aha moments, and the downloads, and the synchronicities. That all comes to people. But it's the patterns and the bad habits and that stuff that we recognize, that when we recognize it, how do we look at it, like, as a third person? How do we come out of our body, out of our mind, out of the experience, out of the pain and suffering while it happens, while it's happening? And how do we do that? And how do we look into it and say, okay, we're going to revise this. We're going to go into the judge, go into the courtroom, even though we went through trial, but now we're going to go to trial again. Just watch. And we're going to deal with this police officer again. Just watch. And we're going to take this criminal record away. Just watch. The judge went like this and gave me the record, or said you have to go to remand, or you have to go to anger management. Okay, well, now I'm going to do it differently. And so I would go through things differently and break out of that cycle, and notice me being a spirit, going through the pain and suffering, and being conscious, aware, and mindful, and in the present moment, and practice the essence of my tendencies as they're happening, but before they happen and while they're occurring, and just go through it and learn to be okay with it and know that we're just a spirit. And then go through it again and again and again, differently, until we can break the pattern finally, and then win and say, yes, this one down, next one to go, and then we go through the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. And it doesn't matter how many times it takes. That's the lesson. You're the lesson. You're the one here. You're the lesson. And you are the lesson to break. You're the spirit. You're the God here. That you got to realize that when you go up there, yeah, it's going to be easy peasy, but God's not going to reprimand you and be like, you're done for, you're dead, screw you. You're done for, screw you. And you're going to be a vegetable, and you're going to be fucked up, and you're going to go through the criminal records like I did, and you're going to suffer and go through the broken relationship and the divorce and the children being taken away from you, go to jail, have an emergency protection order against your own kids that you didn't even touch. You're going to have it all. I'm going to have it all. I went through so much destruction and pain and suffering. But I didn't hang myself on that tree. And I didn't take those pharmaceuticals that my spirit wanted me to take, and I didn't kill myself again. And I fought through this life. So you got to do it. You got to do it through the pain and suffering. Don't say how. Leave that up to God. Leave that up to your spirit. Don't say how, why, this. Just be in the silence and just do it anyways. And don't worry who's watching and who's paying attention. Just do it.
Yeah. Yes, gosh, your story is so inspiring, and there's so much detail to it that, I just want to reiterate again, there were so many similarities. And, for me, it was always, I had to surrender first. I had to surrender. And the way that I did that to get through my addictions into recovery was being willing to listen to someone else who had made it through, who had experienced what I had experienced or something similar, who got through the other side, had some years of recovery. And I had to actually be willing to take suggestions from this person and take different actions simultaneously. And none of that was comfortable at all. It was hard, but so worth it. So we had a little bit of a different path getting to sobriety and recovery.
That's very important what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Although I didn't have the guidance, I didn't have the wiser, but sometimes those prostitutes that I was hanging out with, and sometimes those homeless men that I was hanging out with, and sometimes those burnt bridges that I burnt people had a tale to tell, that it came into alignment and synchronicity through the years. And those same lessons are what you're talking about. Yeah. And we have to be willing to go through what you just said. It's very important.
And something that you've mentioned several times during this conversation is the whispers. And for me, in my experience, it was almost as if, like, in hindsight, I could look back at that first time that I drank and see that my soul, my higher self, something in me knew that I was going to go down this road of addiction. and and so I did what you did. I was like, that I'm not going to listen to that. Like, I'm just going out, right? Like, I'm 21. That's what we do, right? And I chose not to listen, but I can tell you that the whole way for 15 years of drinking and partying and experimenting with all kinds of drugs, there were those whispers. They were actually there.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
trying to guide me away from it, but I had to hit, like, just like you, I had many, many bottoms, actually. Bottoms that some people from the outside looking in would be like, wow, I cannot believe that you continued to drink after that. Like, I overdosed. I didn't die, but I overdosed. And, that to anyone else in this world looks like a bottom that would make an impact. And it wasn't. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Nothing was ever enough. So thank you so much for being so vulnerable, for being so open, for sharing your experience. I know that the program that I went through to get to recovery was all about experience, strength, and hope. And the guidance is there, whether it's those whispers or it's external. There is guidance around us. So I know we've been chatting for a while. I'm curious if there's anything else that you want to share or offer the audience today.
Absolutely, because you're saying such a beautiful thing. So it's giving me more to say or speak on. The subconscious, the unconscious is also spiritual. And our tainted spirit is unprogrammed. It's not, doesn't have an auto suggestion. It doesn't have a program, a new software or hardware. So it's going off of all we know at that time. So the spirit wants to fight through, but it's so tainted that it's not loud enough because of our subconscious and the narrative all around us. And so what I would encourage people to do is research, homework, study and learn and outlearn everything that you've been taught. Unlearn everything and be a beginner. Be okay to be vulnerable. Let go of everything you think is something that's real or unreal or true or not true. There's so much more beyond that meets the eye. I've learned and expanded so much just coming back. What I don't know. There's so much that we don't know, and it's okay. But the more we grow, the more we learn, the more we research, it will help us reprogram our subconscious mind and challenge ourselves out of old habits, break free of all the habits, and just do more work.
For sure. And I love that. It's like we have to forget everything we know or everything we think we know in order for something new to come in. So thank you so much for sharing that. I have 3 questions that I ask all my guests.
Yep.
The first question is, how would you define God or source?
There's no definition. God cannot be defined. And once we define something, then we're just lost. So that's how I would recognize source or God, is it's undefined. Awesome. And unrefined.
The next question is, what would you say is the purpose of life?
Everything. Every breath you take, every thought you think, every challenge every hurdle, everything you think you've done. And, if you think you don't need to do something or don't need to try something, that alone is a challenge. Do it. If you don't think you need to write a book, write a book. If you don't journal and your body's telling you don't do it, we don't need to do this. Do it. Challenge your brain. Challenge your brain. That's many purposes to that. Your family, forgiveness, so many vulnerabilities, tapping into the unknown, biohacking, our nutrition, our gut bacteria, parasites, learning about radio waves and frequencies and the chemtrails, learning about science, learning about the earth, learning about our true history, what's been lied to us. Learn that stuff.
And the final question is, I'm really curious of how you'll answer this. The final question is, if you can take one piece of wisdom that you have now and offer it to a younger version of yourself. So let's say that 8-year-old or the 14-year-old or the 20-year-old, what would that piece of wisdom be?
Many thoughts. A thought came to me immediately. Maybe you should have died sooner. And because maybe if I died sooner, I would have learned the lesson sooner that nobody really gave a fuck. Your own mother, your own father, your own sister, your own friends, your own family, nobody really gave a fuck about you. And you're gonna live this life alone. So I already lived that life alone. Yes, people say, oh, we were there for you. We paid for this. We took care of you. We helped you here. We did this. We took you in. But that comes with that doesn't feel good to a child saying, of course we took you in. Of course we did this for you. So I would have died sooner to gain that realization faster, to not be so vulnerable and susceptible and so naive and ignorant and gullible for many, many years of my childhood. I would have wished that I woke myself up much faster and disciplined myself much faster and broke free of all the mental roadblocks and all the chains and all the blockages and past paradigms and generational curses in advance. That's what I would have done.
So I'm spontaneously throwing in a fourth question for you, because I know that there are times where I wish that I didn't do some of the things I did in my addiction. And then there are times where I wouldn't be the person I am today without all of that. So I don't regret it. So I'm curious, do you have regrets around some of the things that you did before you died?
Anything could have been a regret. Like if I caught a disease sleeping around, that could be my answer, right? Or if I, anything that you heard in my story could be a regret. But I could have, I would have, should have, I wish I could have learned myself to forgive sooner. That if I wish I didn't condemn and prosecute and blame and be such a victim for like my parents from such an early age, and teach myself faster that just forgive them. They don't know what they don't know, and just learn to send them love and light through this darkness, and that through this dark energy, this dark matter that you went through, I wish I learned sooner that there's light out of the darkness, and how to use the dark instead of using it against me and favoring my subconscious and the entities and the spirits that wanted to taint me and what the agenda is on planet Earth. That's what I would have taught myself or changed, you know?
I can relate to that. How do people find you, Malcom, if they want to get in touch with you or work with you?
Guidedintelligence.ca, and social media. I have all my testimonial videos on my YouTube. If you search me, you can find over 15 different podcast interviews I've done. And I have a children's self-help book called Arnav's Affirmations, and is a great beginner guide to start reprogramming your subconscious mind. And if you want to message me and get a free document to reprogram your subconscious mind, just reach out or search me by my name, Malcom Nair.
Awesome. I'll be sure to include all of that information in the description of this show. And I just want to say thank you. I'm glad you didn't die. I'm glad that you lived your journey to be here today, to talk about it, to share it, to help so many, many others in their struggles, in their journeys, and just to help raise the consciousness of the world. So I appreciate you being here today. It's been such an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and you're very welcome.
I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.